What's going on, everybody? Today's episode is brought to you by my friends at blackriflecoffee.com. Why support abortion-loving Starbucks? Why support communist regimes that are Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, everybody else you can imagine when you can drink America's coffee? Go right now. Not only do they have the world's greatest American coffee, not only are they employing hundreds of thousands of veterans, not only are they giving millions of dollars away to charities, including the Dear America Foundation, they also have cool hats, apparel, and like I said, America's coffee. Not only that, they're my friends. We've been friends for forever, and we're proud to have them on this show. Make sure to go to blackriflecoffee.com today.
And God ordained America to be the greatest country in the world, and it is worth fighting for. It is worth bleeding for, and if it takes it, it's worth dying for the greatest country that this world has ever seen.
All right, what up, America? Ladies and gentlemen, we have one of my favorite congresswomen, Congresswoman Lauren Boebert is here.
Hey.
Thank you so much for joining us. Applause, there we go. Zach with the
Little
thing.
delayed.
It was delayed. I apologize.
We love everything you do. Obviously, me and you talk from time to time, about everything that's going on. And I'm super excited to have you on for two reasons. One reason, I want to pick your brain about everything that's going on in D.C. But first, we've got to get into My American Life. Your new book is out, so congratulations again on that. We got a lot of applause going on today. Talk to us about the book.
Yeah, so the fake news loves to try to tell my story for me.
Yeah.
And so I put my story in a book for the American people to read themselves. I'm very excited about it. This is my journey to becoming a conservative, my journey to being a mom who is concerned about the future of my children.
Right.
As you can see on the cover here of My American Life, I have my 4 boys,
Yeah.
and I'm raising them to be men because liberals want them to be women.
Yeah.
And I want them to know where they come from, that their rights come from their creator, that their value comes from the one who created them, not what social media says, not what the news says, and what this woke culture is trying to put on them. So I need to do everything I can to defend our liberties, the foundation of our family, of our country, and that's why I'm here. But I was actually raised in a Democrat household.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes, I was. And I feel like my mom has a similar story to a lot of people. She was in a very abusive relationship. There was alcohol and substance abuse, physical abuse, and she turned to the Democrat Party for answers.
Right.
She needed help, and they said, our policies will help you. This is how you can be a good mom and be successful
Right.
and take care of your children. But those policies put us in a cycle of poverty. Those policies put us in breadlines. They're waiting for government cheese, paying for groceries with monopoly money. And it was this cycle of poverty that was near impossible to get out of, because if you went out and tried to do something better for yourself, it wouldn't be enough. And all of that other stuff would be taken from you, the threats of losing everything. And so when I was 15, I got my first job at McDonald's, and it taught me 2 things really quick.
Sonic was
there
me.
you go.
Yeah,
there
Sonic,
you go.
yeah.
Aren't you grateful that they were able to afford to invest in you at that time? Gosh, I think I made less than $6 an hour when I got my first job, but I loved every minute of it. But I learned 2 things with that first paycheck. First of all, I didn't like this FICA guy because he's taking all my money.
Yeah.
Wait a second, I work for that.
I still don't like that FICA guy.
I don't like him
yeah.
either. I'm trying to find him. So I'm getting closer. But also, I could do a better job taking care of myself than government ever had.
Right.
And so this led me on this journey to being a self-taught conservative. I found my footing with God and learned to walk by faith, brought that message of faith and freedom into the local jail with women who were incarcerated. And I let them know they don't have to be bound by their past, their mistakes, their upbringing. I could personally introduce them to the God who could turn their shame into glory.
Right.
And then I was able to offer them jobs. And that was so much more powerful than a government program. So there are many stories in here. I wish more members of Congress had the life experiences that I've had.
Yeah.
I know you've had some great life experiences, but this is why we need real people serving. That's what our founding fathers intended. So My American Life, it's available on Amazon. Boo.
You got to do it, though. You got to do it.
You got to. Walmart.com, Books A Million. And then I've also recorded the audio version to my book. It's in my voice. It's
That's
my
exhausting,
story.
isn't it? Having
Yeah, but I think it's worth it. It turned out pretty good.
Yeah, well, that's great. I didn't know that, and so that's great. I got to get one. I didn't even know you were writing one until I saw the announcement, and I was like, man, I got to get Lauren's book.
Yes, I can't wait for my second book. There's so much more that has happened since I finished this book.
So is this the pre-Congress book, or is this the journey through the first campaign?
Yes, there's a lot of that first campaign in there. So I actually wrote the majority of the book right when I was elected.
Okay.
Through the editing process, there's a few little stories that have been added, but I can't wait for the next one because this past year and a half has been explosive.
Yeah, so my first book was very similar. Mm-hmm. How did I get here?
Yes.
Kind of thing. And then the second book was very much let me tell you what it's really like now that we're here. Mm-hmm. And I'm working on the third book now.
Congratulations.
After going through the congressional race process. And this is what I'm super excited to talk to you about, because this, believe it or not, is a very controversial thing. I always used to say before I ran for Congress, given what we do and things, I saw about 40% behind the veil of politics.
Right.
When I officially ran the congressional campaign, I want to say they gave me like 47, maybe 50% behind the veil. And that extra 10% was so dark, so evil, so corrupt. And I know there's things that we can't say on these microphones about things, but it truly changed the way I looked at everything. And so one of those things was I realized that politics is not going to save this country.
Right.
The only person that can save this country is not a person, it's God.
Yes.
And I've been fighting this battle for a long time, but I know that you've been very vocal about it as well. This separation of church and state, garbage, as I like to put it.
Yeah.
Thomas Jefferson, when he wrote that, you know what I wish he would have done? I wish he would have said the separation from church and state instead of the separation from church and state, or separation from state and church, excuse me. Because that was his intent when he did that, because they came from...
Yeah, they didn't want a Church of England.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. They came from a land where the government dictated the church. And based on what church you attended, et cetera, led to your political status and all of the above. And so we've perverted this to make Christians weak to where, you can't talk about that because that's political and separation from church and state. So you've spoken up about this. I'd love to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, so you're exactly right. We're not advocating for a theocracy, but the church is supposed to direct government, not the opposite way. The church is supposed to influence government, and we need to be so involved in what is going on in our government. I mean, the Bible says that the government rests on his shoulders, on God's shoulders. So I hate that they say that this is in the Constitution.
Oh. Well, and
read the dang Constitution. It's not in there. It's a letter.
Well, and I read this, this is my nerd life. I deep dive on all this stuff all the time. And Thomas Jefferson was so, and that's why I said I wish he would have said it, the separation of state and church.
Right.
Because he was so against the government doing things. So did you know, I found out this, I didn't know it until just about, 2 weeks ago, that every president, George Washington twice, John Adams, and then Jefferson, every president before Jefferson did a government like holiday of prayer and fasting when they were elected.
Amazing.
And Thomas Jefferson was the first president not to do that. And his reasoning for it made a lot of people super mad. But his reasoning was, he said, I don't believe the government should mandate people to do that.
Right.
And mandate the church to mandate anything.
Right.
Was his purpose. He said in his thesis that he wrote about the whole thing that he always anticipates there to be a large public dialogue from the church and a large public dialogue from politics, etc., to dialogue with each other and go back and forth. He never imagined that it would be perverted to this thing where I've said for a long time the worst thing the church ever did was the tax-free status. Because what it did was allowed the government to be able to put a muzzle on the church.
Yeah.
You know what's never good? When your nation's supposed authority on economic policy completely misses the flashing red lights of impending inflation. Now, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has finally admitted there have been unanticipated and large shocks to the economy that have boosted energy and food prices, and supply bottlenecks that affected our economy badly that I didn't at the time fully understand. Well, you know, Janet, who did understand, that would be real Americans and the people who invested in gold and silver with Birch Gold Group. They're protecting your savings from a highly turbulent economy by diversifying their 401k or IRA into gold, physical gold. And it's not too late for you to take action now. Text the word Graham, that's Graham, to 989898 and get a free info kit on diversifying and protecting your savings with precious metals. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, countless 5-star reviews, and thousands of satisfied customers. Text the word Graham, that's Graham, to 989898 for a free, no obligation info kit now.
Well, talk about that muzzle, what's been going on. I mean, we have freedom of religion. We have the freedom to assemble. And it was dirty politicians who shut down churches. Strip clubs were open. Marijuana dispensaries were open in Colorado. Liquor stores were open.
Yeah.
But the church was shut down. And now these same pastors who were shut down by these corrupt politicians, these power-hungry politicians, they aren't allowed to tell their church, hey, don't vote for this candidate. You know, this isn't who we support. We support this person because this person is actually going to uphold your constitutional rights. And those politicians can come in and shut them down, but they can't say we shouldn't support them. They can come in and actually. But one more thing, the Democrats, they don't want churches talking about government because they believe the government is God.
Yeah.
Government is their God.
Absolutely.
There is nothing bigger than government, and that's why they are continuously growing it. We know that God is ultimate. He is supreme. He is certainly above the government, and that's where our rights come from. They think that their rights come from government, from politicians. We allowed you to be free.
Yeah.
No. God created us free.
It was never the government's authority to give or take away.
Right.
And I've said that a lot, that the original creation for the government, the sole purpose of it was to be a final protection if our rights were ever infringed upon. That was literally the role of the government initially. And somehow it turned into this, they're in charge of everything.
Yes.
And I asked this question a lot about the founding fathers and everything. Like, would they be proud of us where we are now?
No.
Would they even recognize us as Americans at all?
Right.
How we operate? And I think the answer is no.
Right.
Like, I don't think that they ever. I mean, who would have ever imagined the technological advances that we have, et cetera, today? But I don't think they ever would have imagined that we would have perverted the Constitution and words the way that we have. So I'm sure you see this in politics all the time. The left and woke society is taking words and they're changing what they actually mean. You've probably heard it all the time. Well, America was never great. Well, no, what you really mean is America was never perfect.
Right.
And you're merging these things together. Well, what I'm seeing now with moral issues like Roe v. Wade and things like that, the church is now copying government talking points and saying, well, actually, that's a political issue. So you know, we can't talk about those things. What is the answer to that? How do we actually fix that? I mean, I can talk all the time. All the churches need to just do it anyway, and then they just need to talk about this. From a political standpoint, I mean, what can actually be done to fix this? Yeah,
well, in churches, it's legal to actually have voter registration. You can have voter registration in your church.
Really?
Yes, you can. And that's not saying vote for this candidate, vote for this party. You're simply registering somebody to vote. So, I mean, that's something that's really easy to do. But also, I mean, we have to speak truth. We have to speak the word. And it's okay to tell people to vote your Bible.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to name a person. You
Yeah.
know, who stands for life? Who stands for freedom, for liberty, for the freedom for the church to assemble? You know, it's okay to say that and have these conversations, but we have to speak truth. We have to be loud about it. If we are silent, we lose by default. And our founding fathers, you know, when they had just liberated a nation, they just came out of oppression and tyranny. And when they created this government, they wanted a government that was powerful enough to thwart off any oppression and tyranny from the rest of the world.
Absolutely.
But also limited enough that it was so limited that it could never impose that same tyranny and oppression on its own people.
Yeah.
And so we have to get back to a limited government. The government is not limited. It's out of control with everything, with policy, with rhetoric, with spending. Everything is absolutely out of control. It's a free-for-all. And I'm so tired of the Roe v. Wade and all the legislation that they're trying to push around to get around that. They're shouting that women need medical freedom. Well, it's not freedom to kill somebody. And also, we were shouting that when you were trying to stick us all with your dang vaccines for a year and a half. That don't work. Exactly. Double boosted.
We can say that here on this show. Well, we can tell the truth.
I say it anyway. But and these are the same people. They're standing up for women. They're standing up for women's medical freedom. They want to force vaccines. They say that men can get pregnant and men can menstruate. And I wish they would stop, because now there's a feminine hygiene product shortage, and then we have the baby formula shortage. So if they are going to get pregnant, can they please figure out how to chest feed so we can stop the shortage on baby formula? But these people cannot even define what a woman is, and then they say that they are standing there defending their freedom.
Yeah, it becomes discouraging sometimes, and I can't imagine what you must feel. The attacks that you get all the time. You know, I had no idea that you were a sex worker. That was crazy stuff. I feel like the second I saw that, I texted you and I was like, "This is the craziest thing I've ever heard."
That chapter's not in there. It didn't make my book.
Weird. That'll be the next one. That'll be the
yes. No, so I was on an airplane actually when that broke. I got on an airplane that evening, and I was like, "Oh my God! Like, this is this crazy thing." They said I've terminated 2 pregnancies. It was an unlicensed escort. That was their biggest grief. I didn't have a license to be an escort. This is what they were claiming. And so I get on a plane. Senator Bennett from Colorado, he kind of leans over my chair on the airplane. He goes, "Hey, Lauren, how you doing?" And I said, "Senator, I'm great. I'm going home to tell my 9-year-old what an escort is." And then the people around me all kind of laughed. But I mean, how ridiculous, how absurd.
All right, we have recently had some huge wins for truth in the American family. It feels like the pendulum may be swinging back to that time of great American values, and the center of that change has to be the family, your family. Ronald Reagan once said, "All great change in America starts at the dinner table." There's no company doing more to help you bring your family and friends to the table than Good Ranchers. Good Ranchers delivers a 100% American meat experience to your door. They guarantee you meat that is born, raised, and harvested here in the U.S. so that you know where it comes from and who you are supporting. You're already buying meat, so why not buy in the way that strengthens the American farm? Your country and taste buds will thank you. Not only that, I personally eat it all the time. It is a mainstay at my house, and we use it and eat it just about every single day. Make sure to use my code GRAHAM, that's GRAHAM, to get $30 off your order. Plus, get free express shipping. You can make gatherings at the table common again with Good Ranchers. Take advantage of this offer before it's gone. Go to goodranchers.com/Graham to start bringing people to the table, creating change in America, and eating seriously delicious food from Good Ranchers. Does it not concern you where we are now that, like, for example, and you know, we've experienced this a lot. We'll post something on the internet now. For example, I posted a clip. It wasn't even of me. It was about this pizza delivery guy. Did you see this video where he jumped in this burning building, saved 5 people, then went back in and got the baby? He's been in the hospital for a couple of days now. He's a pizza delivery guy.
Wow.
And the cop footage captured it. I post that and look at, humanity still exists.
Yes.
Look at this hero. I get a community guidelines violation strike for violent behavior and promoting violent behavior on the thing. Appeal it, everything, still this.
Oh, my goodness.
But people can just through no proof, no resources, no nothing, can just say whatever they want about you.
Exactly.
And it's fine. And
Yes.
nothing happens to these people.
It took a few weeks, but we eventually got a CNN fact check.
Finally?
Finally, yes.
Yeah, a few weeks later.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
It took a while.
The damage is done, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this label is there, and people are accusing me of this, especially in a time where we are declaring that we are for the unborn. I mean, that's something that is a part of our everyday life, but I mean, we're now post-Roe.
Yeah.
And this comes out, and they're going to accuse me of terminating
Right before
two
your
pregnancies.
primary, too.
And then, right before the primary. But, those two pregnancies they accused me of terminating, they had dates of when it happened. Their supposed anonymous source had dates. And I'm like, well, that's great, because both of those dates you gave, I was pregnant, and I have the children. I have the children to prove it. They're here.
But that's the insanity now. Like we saw it with Matt Gaetz, where we've seen it with Marjorie
Right.
Taylor Greene. I mean, we see it with.
They will not stop.
They
Yeah.
will not. And we live in a world now to where, one of my favorite Bible verses talks about this. It's talking about the first person to tell their side of the story seems right until somebody else comes and tells the other side of the story. Well, right now, and I tell everybody this all the time, we are under a spiritual battle under the veil of politics, because what is happening right now is only one side is allowed to tell their side of the story.
The other story gets shut down, absolutely shut down, absolutely censored. And this is why we have to push through. This is why your show is important, because this is getting to viewers, to listeners, and it's getting truth to people. And so we have to keep up at all costs. That's why, what Charlie Kirk is doing is so amazing. We're here at the Student Action Summit in Tampa, Florida, and this is motivating millions of youth around across the nation. And it's very impactful, and we have to keep it up.
What is, for the audience listening, what is the biggest battle politically that we have coming our way that nobody's really thinking about right now? If you had to say what the biggest issue is, not only for November, but also for 2024, being on DC, being on the Hill, like what's the biggest issues right now?
I think the biggest challenge is going to ensure that when we do take back the House and fire Nancy Pelosi, that leadership actually does something with it.
Right.
That actually holds the Democrats accountable for what they've been doing, that we actually do something to secure our southern border. So that is going to be our biggest challenge, is making sure our party does something.
Right.
And the only way we lose the midterms is if we start acting like Democrats. And there's plenty of Republicans who are just fine doing that. But, I think you and I both, we are political rhino hunters.
Yeah.
And so
it's been very discouraging. It really has. And I know that we've had conversations before where, if you had to count how many people, if you really had a fight, would really be on your side. And I want to say it was around like 10 or 12 people you said out of all of them.
Yeah.
And it has been shocking. Not that I didn't know and I didn't believe, but it's another thing to see it in just real time. All of these people back down and just flip-flop back and forth on whatever they think the woke cancel mob is at the time.
And I'm hoping we're getting enough candidates elected into the freshman class next Congress that number's 20 or 30.
I hope so too.
So I would really love to see a lot more people. We in the Freedom Caucus, we are doing what we can to make sure we are holding the party line. But it's tough. When leadership says that, it doesn't matter. When the minority, vote however you want.
Right.
I mean, that matters, and that impacts the way people vote, and people make excuses for bad legislation.
Well, we appreciate you.
Thank you.
I mean, it's not, everybody thinks that this stuff doesn't bother us. And I tell people all the time, it's not that it doesn't. We just persevere anyway. And so, the things that you have to go through, the things that your family has to go through, we just appreciate you being a pit bull up there, man. I love it. Every time we see anything that you're talking about, agree with it 100%.
Awesome.
You are one of the few that's actually doing the right things. And so, where can people go outside of the book? Where can people go to support you? Where can they donate to you and all that stuff?
LaurenForFreedom.com, and that's going to be really important. I'm up against an Aspen millionaire.
Wow.
So, Aspen...
Go figure.
Yeah,
of course.
Aspen Adam isn't going to do well in rural Colorado. However, they will spend whatever they want against me. I mean, he even raised $200,000, spent $500,000 because he can. Isn't that the perfect example of liberal math? Raise $200,000, spend $500,000. Goodness.
That works.
And that's just the beginning. But so LaurenForFreedom.com. I need all the help, all the support that I could get. $5 helps, $10 helps. This is massive. And then, of course, go on, get my book, hear my story, share my story, tell your friends about it. We need conservative books in the bookstores.
Yep.
There are publishers who will not publish for conservatives.
Absolutely.
And we need to show them that these books sell because this is the message that Americans want to hear.
Yeah, and for everybody listening, make sure that you go get the book. I'm excited to read it. And then make sure you donate to Lauren as well, because even if she's not in your state, even if she's not in your district or whatnot, it doesn't matter.
Right.
If we don't send the real ones to D.C., even if they're not even in your state, then none of it means anything. And so this is truly a team effort. So make sure you do that. Lauren, thanks so much for being here. We know your time is precious. Make sure, go support her. Go get the book. Listen to everything that this woman does. She is killing it up in D.C., and she's killing it as a faith-filled mom that's trying to do things the right way. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Dear America podcast. Make sure to hit subscribe. Make sure to share. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you all again next time.